All right, welcome to another episode of the Pinpoint Investor with Faisal Morsi. As always, it's brought to you by Pinpoint Skip. Check out our motivated seller leads at pinpointskip.com. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Matt Derby. I've known this guy for, I think, like 4 years. We initially connected when I wanted to start buying some rentals, and then we just kind of just turned into friends. Appreciate you being on, Matt.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So, give people an idea, like, what do you do now, and how did you get in this?
Yeah, sure. Try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. But I was a loan officer for almost 15 years, and it's kind of a combination of things that really kind of got me going into real estate investment. I saw the stuff on TV, the HGTV stuff, and I knew a friend of a friend that was doing Section 8 rentals back kind of post crash, the crash of 08, 09. And he just kept saying it's just insane. It's like candy from a baby. It's great money, so on and so forth. So kind of had the itch before that, and I kind of started getting a little bit stale and a little bit burnt out doing the loan officer thing. So, and about 10 years ago, 2014, maybe been the end of 13, but bought my first flip in Canton, and it was kind of off and running to from there. And actually, I don't know exactly where we're at numbers wise, but I know we're very, very close to having our 300th property rental unit right now or here in the next 30 days. So maybe I'll give it a count once we get off the call. But yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride for sure. A decade of doing it. I didn't really hit it full throttle until like 2018. I was kind of going at a snail's pace there for a while, but 5, 6 years of waking up day in and day out, and it's been good. It's been challenging but good.
All right, so what's that trajectory look like? So from 2018, like how many rentals did you have, and about how many did you accumulate over the years? Because 300 is overwhelming.
Yeah, sure is. So I started flipping houses. The first one again was a flip, and I started taking on these really, really big projects, which was a monster mistake. When all said and done, I had some flips that took well over a year. One or two probably took closer to 2 years, as crazy as that sounds to me now. So I really was just kind of in like quicksand for literally 2 to 3 years, just trying to kind of navigate it all, figure it all out. I really struggled coming out of the blocks, buying rentals as well. The first 3 or 4 years was just kind of all right, mistake, lesson learned. What can we what value can we get from that, and make a note of it to not do it again. And so I didn't really. I bought a few rentals. First rental that we really bought outside of some old primaries was 2015, but bought maybe a handful of them in 17 or 18, and quickly realized that I just wasn't doing a good job with them. I wasn't doing a good job with the flips. Basically, I wasn't doing a good job with the rentals, and we started getting some crazy cost maintenance stuff coming up, and I kind of shelved it. And then at one point, I woke up. It was probably 2019 where I just kind of woke up one day and said, you know what, I've learned so many mistakes doing the flips that I'm gonna keep plugging away, and just not give up on doing the rentals. I don't want to do the flips anymore. So, we've gone from about 5 units to obviously about 300 from 19 to today in about 5 years. It started with probably 10 or 15 in 19, probably about 30-ish in 2020. Obviously, 2020 was kind of an odd year. But 21, and 22 and 23, we bought about 70 houses a year. So we really, really hit it hard. I think I've said this to you, or I said it to many people, in 2021, when rates were in the threes and properties were appreciating 1 to 2% a month. I just knew from being in the loan officer world that you're just never going to find an environment like that probably ever again, where you see rapid appreciation and record low interest rates. It's just the two of them just kind of don't really jive. So again, we hit it really hard, kind of worked my ass off and still dealt with a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning lessons, a lot of stress, a lot of just, you name it. But we kind of all worked out for the best, I guess, when all said and done. So bringing you to present, I don't want to be buying 70 houses a year. That's just not, I don't want to be going 99 miles an hour anymore. So we're probably going to end up buying about 40 houses this year, which is enough to kind of, I have kind of my own crew of guys, and that's hopefully enough to kind of keep them busy. Still growing, but again, we're trying to kind of find a cruise control number, and I think that is probably it for us.
And so are you doing any flipping? And like when you were, acquiring 70 houses a year, were you doing any flipping then too?
Not really. I have not done a flip since I 21, maybe it went to sale in early 22. It's just kind of not my speed. I just really don't. One of my least favorite things about real estate is selling them. It's great to pull some cash off the table for sure. I do like that part. I like a nice wire hitting my bank account, but dealing with agents, buyers, home inspections, all that stuff, it kind of just it gave me a monster headache when all said and done. And I was doing it a little bit again in 21, just because the market was just insane. Yeah, I mean, not that the market is not insane today. I think it's a great environment to flip houses in, but we were selling things. The last few flips that I did in 2021, I mean, we were selling them for $40,000 over asking, over our projected, so we were almost doubling our profit. So I did it really because again, I knew it was a great time to do it, but after a while, I just kind of said, you know what, I don't know, money's great, but happiness and doing stuff that you truly like and enjoy is also very good and important as well. So I just kind of called it quits. So outside of maybe selling a rental unit that we have, we're not acquiring any properties right now to simply renovate them and turn around and sell them.
Nice. Okay. How are you funding all these? Is it hard money, private money, like your own? What is it?
Yeah. So pretty much everything that we do is the good old Burr strategy. So we're buying with short-term funds or bridge funds, hard money. There's a number of different labels for it. So I've actually started a hard money company myself, Jet Financial, which we're growing extremely slowly, but surely. So I'm borrowing some funds actually from a lending company that it's mine and a partner. We're funding some of my deals with that, and then everything else is just funded by a different hard money lender.
Okay, nice. What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a 300 unit portfolio?
Um,
And just to clarify, I mean, like units is one thing. Matt owns like 300 like single doors, which is mind blowing to me.
yeah. I mean, that's a pretty deep question that you're hitting with, putting me on the spot with. I would say first and foremost, invest. I came out again, as I've already said, I spent a solid 2, 3+ years just figuring this out. And even with that said, I even had the peace of mind I spent over $20,000 on a mentor very early on. And even he wasn't the best, but he was far from the worst. I have no regrets in hiring him. He helped me learn a lot. And even with that investment, and even with that mentor that held my hand on a lot of renovations, there still is so much to learn. So, really invest in some sort of mentor. I'm not, I don't really love the bigger pockets and stuff of the world, because I equate real estate to riding a bike. You can't read a book about riding a bike. You need to, you got to take action. You got to do it. You got to get in the trenches. So I'm not saying to never get on the bigger pockets, but find somebody that will, give you a head start and can you're almost buying all of those lessons learned off of them. Be just kind of rattling off some more. I mean, you never can have enough cash in terms of doing renovations. And also just, you never know when a furnace is going to go up. I mean, not to get too far off the beaten track, but I've probably paid out about $40,000 in HVAC bills for older units in the last 30 days. That happens. Obviously, the more units you have, the more things can go wrong. But that's another thing. Always kind of keep your cash very, very close to you. And also, again, renovate them correctly. That doesn't mean you need to fully gut everything out. But I always tell people nothing lasts forever. So if you're going to kind of take a chance on an old furnace, take a chance on an old roof, maybe throw a little bit of money away to the side that you're not going to touch, and say, okay, you know what? We're going to hopefully get a couple more years out of this. But if it goes up in smokes in 3 months, I'm ready for that. It's not oh, geez, I just got whacked with a $4,500 HVAC bill when I only have 5 units and I'm not even cash flowing $4,500 a month. And then lastly, I would say grow it correctly from the word go. I was a solopreneur. I was a one-man band until I basically almost drove myself off the deep end into the crazy bus, because I was just so stretched thin. I didn't start hiring until 2020, and I didn't bring on a full operations assistant of any sort until 2021. And that was too late in the game. There was a ton of stuff that I either wasn't doing, or I wasn't doing correctly, or I wasn't organized. I look back at that first hire, and she's still actually here with me today. Fortunately, because I look back in it, it's like, I can't believe that the first week she came in here and was like, this is just a hot dumpster fire going on, like, and just like ran for the door. So really get your ducks in a row. Really just kind of try and you don't strive for perfection, because perfection leads to procrastination, but really try and build things with a solid foundation. And just little stuff. Get your rental licenses. Do the stuff the right way from the word go. Because if not, you're going to have to go back and backtrack, and somebody's going to have to kind of reorganize and refix things down the road.
Nice. Okay. Now, if you were to start over again, would you build a rental portfolio, or like not do any flips? Like, what would you do differently?
Well, again, the flips are not really for me. I'm not. At the same time, if I like doing flips, I absolutely would be doing them. Again, full throttle right now. It still is a great market. Clearly, until the lack of inventory issue gets resolved, I truly believe that, if you can sell stuff right now is still a great time. As you know, I considered selling my whole portfolio recently. Um, so it's a great environment for doing that. It's a great environment for wholesaling and doing contract assignments as well. Um, for me personally, if I could do it over again, I certainly would build a rental portfolio. I would have focused just as much, if not more, onto lending when I got started than I did. I obviously came from the lending world, and I think I kind of wanted to almost run away from it, and was just kind of like, yeah, that's a previous lifetime of mine. But there's the being the bank is it's the riskiest position for sure, but it's also the most profitable and the most hands off. So um, as everybody knows, the J.P. Morgan Chases and the Wells Fargo and the Bank of Americas of the world, they're worth trillions of dollars, trillions with a T. There's no landlord or group of landlords that are worth trillions or probably even billions. There's nobody out there flipping houses. Nobody's really ever scaled. When I say scaled, I mean, in terms of like doing it nationwide and thousands of flips per year. And hey, that's not to say that you need to do that. Again, it's a good business. It's good money. But where I'm trying to go with that is that uh, the best position for you to be in from my perspective is to be the lender on these transactions, to really to be the bank, as the old saying goes. So I would have focused a lot more on that, if I could go back in time. But if nothing else, the tax benefits of owning rental real estate to kind of offset that short-term income is obviously huge as well. So and if you're doing any of those things, by the way, if you have a lot of short-term capital gains coming in, which is assignments, flips, I can't recommend enough picking up some rentals here and there. Again, if nothing else, to offset the good old tax man, because I think that the taxes, unfortunately, not to get political, but I think taxes are probably only going to be going up over time, unfortunately. So, what you're having to pay now is probably only going to go up, whether it's next month, next year, or whenever that may be.
Gotcha. You discussed possibly selling your portfolio. Like, what's the mentality there? Like, is it you just cash out and ride into the sunset, or are you going to like build another portfolio back better? Like, why consider selling it and why now?
Yeah, sure. Well, just because of the essentially of the market. If I can spin, let's say, a $10 million paycheck in doing 4 or 5 years of work, that's a great outcome. I mean, that's like pro athlete type money. Well, if you're a lower level guy, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I do think, and I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth, but you know, if you talk to a Warren Buffett or guys that trade stocks, these properties, everything to me is essentially for sale. And if I can pull that money off of the table and deploy some of it in a lending situation, there's always going to be houses out there to buy, just like stocks. You know, there's guys that are doing well in stocks in almost any market. So it's great to kind of hold on to this stuff, but hey, and I kind of posted about this about a month ago. I might not be the norm, but the dead honest truth of this stuff is I would love to leave my kids some property, but I'm living for today and tomorrow. And if again, if we can pull a ton of money off of that and really soak that up and enjoy it, again, I can always buy houses down the road for ourselves, for my kids. But it's just one of those things where it's like that's just kind of a payday that is really kind of hard to potentially not take, is really the long and short of it.
Um, Obviously you can't like, guess the future, but what do you think your business looks like in 5 to 10 years? Obviously selling a portion of your portfolios, changes things up, but what do you kind of envision your business looking like?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the number of units, probably not a whole lot different than what it does now. And that's, it's so hard to really truly kind of forecast or think about where you're going to be, even a year down the road, let alone 3 or 5. I'm not saying that you shouldn't write that down, think about that, think about where you are, where you want to be, what it's going to take to get to where you want to be. But if you ask me a couple years ago, I would say, oh yeah, I'm never going to sell any of this stuff. So sometimes you just wake up and things kind of change, whether it's for the better or for the worse, and you need to kind of pivot and go a certain way, or just go kind of the way that your gut and your heart is telling you. But we have a few employees right now. I could see it going. The answer there is I don't know. I really don't. Um, if we had 0 houses in 3 to 5 years, I would not be shocked by that. If we had over 500, I would not be shocked by that. I'm just kind of really focused on the short term, and the short term for me right now is we are still acquiring properties. And if the right offer, the right deal comes along where we can liquidate some or all of it, then I'm open to the discussion. I will say that real estate is great. There's a lot of great financial aspects and rewards to it, but it also is a pretty stressful environment. I mean, it really does kind of take a toll on you. And I won't lie, it has. I mean, we just on Thursday of last week, we had a tenant that left their kids at home and they lit the house on fire. So there's stuff that's just constantly happening, and it's like, you just kind of face palm, and it's like, on some level, yeah, you do kind of say to yourself, I've been doing this for a decent amount of time, not decades, but I don't know how much longer I want to do it. And so we'll see. There might be somewhere where I've been working on trying to kind of get further and further away from the business and run it like a true CEO or principal. Not a CEO, really more of a principal. But I think that if we do continue to acquire units and we do get up to the 400 or 500 number, I think that at some point I'm going to say, look, I am going to hire a CEO, or promote someone within, and I'm going to become all but hands off on the business. So I do think that a lot of people lose sight of that as well from a business perspective. The most successful guys, I mean, Jeff Bezos is not the CEO of Amazon. The list goes on. So truly exiting your company on some level really should be the goal. It's not, your business is supposed to serve you at some point. And I think a lot of people, there's just so many business owners that go to the grave still running their business, and it's just that's kind of not how the road to success is paved.
You kind of alluded, or I guess like transition into my next question with that the story about the kids. What is your craziest real estate story? Because I think this business, like we tend to see like I don't want to say the worst of the worst, but there's a lot of craziness out there when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, and that is true. I mean, not to go super negative, but unfortunately, uh, there's a lot of forces kind of working against you as a landlord. The tenants are kind of out for themselves. All the legislation and stuff. We don't really live in an area that's kind of pro landlord friendly. So you are kind of fighting uphill, it seems like some days. But to answer your question there, and this was probably actually I can give you a feel for it right now. I think this was probably somewhere like in the first dozen or so um, rentals that I bought this property. And anyway, I was laying in bed one morning. It was, I don't know, 6:30, 6 o'clock, and all of a sudden my phone on my nightstand just starts going off, just of no and numbers I don't know. And finally, I text back and say, who's this? They say, well, you had a fire, are you the owner of Elmley Avenue? I said, yeah, what do you need? And they said, well, there's been a fire at the property. So, I jump out of bed again. I'm literally, I only have 10, 15 units at this point. So, fire and not that fire is ever to be taken lightly, but I'm just like, whoa, like, my head is just absolutely spinning. And to cut to the chase of it, so I drive down there and I woke up. I talked to the fire chief. I say, hey, what happened here? He says, well, your tenant's son was apparently released from incarceration from some prison or something last night, and he came home and he had apparently had some level of relationship with one of the women that lived on the block, and they got into it. And he did the right thing, basically said, look, you know what? I'm going home. I'm calling it a night. I'm going home. And this woman, the neighbor, decided to basically get a thing of gas or something very flammable, broke into the house in the middle of the night, uh, went upstairs into his bedroom, and he was laying in bed, presumably asleep, doused the guy with gasoline, lit a match, lit a lighter, and literally locked the door on the way out. And yeah, the fire chief, literally showed. He said, "Look, this is how crazy this was. Like she literally locked him in the room." So it was, attempted murder by arson, and it was just super super crazy. Again, just being so early on, it's super crazy again, regardless. But for me to have that happen in my first dozen or so rentals, uh, certainly stepped it up a notch in terms of craziness. But
Yeah,
I've
you still kept wanting to buy more, huh?
yeah, I did for some reason. For some reason.
Yeah, you're
So
nice.
and I'll give you one more on top of that. This is not a landlord story. This is a buyer story. But I had probably a middle-aged guy, let's say, lived with his mother, and his mother passed away in their property at home. And the son did not report any of this to the authorities. And I think after I kind of had a chance to give it a little bit of thought, I think that he was basically kind of living off of her financially and, using her pension and Social Security. He didn't have a job. He had no income coming in, not to justify any of this. But I think he basically wrapped mom up in a few sheets, and I don't know whether he maybe got one of those big freezers. I'm not sure exactly what he did, but mom's body cadaver was chilling in the basement for months. And finally, he passes away. So they did a wellness check or something like that. And, I wasn't involved because I hadn't bought the property. I bought it somewhat quickly after this, but and I don't really even know how all of these details came out, but because I wasn't direct to seller on the transaction, but the medical units came in and were like, yeah, I mean, one of these bodies is fresh, the other one has been, again, just kind of sitting in the basement, somewhat preserved for a few months now. So pretty wild.
Dark. Okay. Um, completely. I'm changing the pace here. One of my favorite things about you is how good of a dad you are and how close a relationship you have with your kids. What do you plan on like teaching your kids about like entrepreneurship or real estate investing? Do you want them to, get into real estate investing, build their own portfolio?
I'm kind of a big believer of being pretty hands off with your kids. I mean, let them choose the path that they want to do. If that's something that's appealing to them and they want to get into it, I'm okay with it. Uh, Quite frankly, I probably, I wouldn't mind handing off the reins to the business if we still have it, and the portfolio to them, to one or both of them. But again, if I could do it over, I just think that being I'm not really a kind of an entrepreneur. I would say, an entrepreneur is, um, from my perspective, in my opinion, is somebody that um, really has kind of their hand in a number of different uh, buckets or things. And, again, I would, like I've already said, I would suggest that they get into the lending business. I just think that there's a lot of stuff business wise that's maybe not quite as much of a grind as real estate. Um, but hey, I mean, with that said, to contradict myself, growing any business is not easy. But I think that there's e-commerce stuff, there's stuff that you can either grow from the ground up or even acquire, and really kind of multiply the revenue, and then again maybe sell it. So I just think that there's some other aspects of business. Actually, it's funny. I don't know whether I mentioned this to you, but I was driving a few weeks back on 32, a local highway here, with my kids coming back from daycare. And I look over, and this woman, this is kind of a good example. But I look over at this car, and this woman has one of those license plate outlines, and it says like, I forget, I think it said Catwoman or something. Like, I love my cats, you know. And the woman, not shockingly, looked like she probably had about 16 cats at home. But I look at that stuff, and it's just like, there's that person, that to me is a good example of kind of this long-winded answer that I'm giving to you. Somebody could have started that business. They could outsource all of the production to somewhere overseas, and all they really do is have a website, and maybe they're ordering in bulk, maybe they're ordering 50, 100 at a time, but there's absolutely no risk in that as well, because there is risk in being a landlord. I mean, I won't get into all the gory details, but yeah, I'm having to go to court over a ridiculous case against myself, for being a landlord. So I think that there's some businesses that you can run with less risk, with less stress, with less nitty gritty involved, and really grow them and exit them, and either do it again, or and also, I mean, another topic is who knows what kind of world we're going to be living in and dealing with. I am a huge believer that AI is going to be probably bigger than the internet over the next decade or so, which will be, my oldest son will be 5 in a few weeks. So, it's hard for me to really wrap my brain around what the world is going to look like, in terms of technology 10 or 15 years down the road as well. But to a younger person, I would say there's absolutely going to be ways to capitalize on AI, on a monstrous levels. I'm not an AI guy. I'm not that smart, but I think that's really a good avenue to look at for younger people as well.
That's awesome. Any advice you'd give to someone who's like starting out or like looking into real estate and just kind of like wanting to get like their feet wet? Do you advise against it, or
No,
actually like,
I mean, again, I don't want to I don't want to come off being too negative, but I always tell people, look, the thing that does bother me at the same time is the gurus and a lot of people out there, they make it seem like it's just so simple and so easy, just like the HGTV shows that I mentioned. Oh, you buy a house, you hire a contractor, you deal with a headache or two, oh, the roof joist, whatever it is for drama. And then everybody just kind of lands on their feet and they give you this, completely fictitious number that they made $70,000 buying this house. And, the one of them, I think, literally even says it. Oh, well, off to buy another house to flip, and it's just know what you're getting into because it can be very, very rewarding. 100%. I mean, I'm very, very bullish on real estate. Um, again, especially as long as inventory stays low and inflation is high and all that macroeconomic stuff. So I don't want to talk anybody out of doing it, but it's not as simple as buying a few houses and just waiting for the first, if you're doing rental real estate, waiting for the first of the month and just that check's just going to appear like clockwork. And, it's very hands off. All this passive income stuff is really just kind of a downright joke. So, again, I'm a fan of it, but you got to know the not only the good but the bad that comes along with it.
yeah, absolutely. Great advice. All right, cool. How do people get a hold of you?
So, really, right now, one thing that I've done recently is I've actually been spending a lot less time on social media. That would be kind of my answer there. And that's not to say that I'm never on social media. I have a Matt Derby REI Facebook page. I have Derby Real Estate Development Facebook page, which admittedly I don't invest a ton of time into posting a ton of content, just because I found that me being on Facebook for 2-3 hours a day is not the best use of time. And but again, I'm still on there at least for 15-30 minutes a day. So that's a good place to start. Um, and I sometimes I go to some of the local meetups, as some of the larger meetups. So that can be a good way to maybe catch up with me and run by any questions or have a quick conversation.
For your fans to actually come up to you and ask you for an autograph in the picture. All right, cool. Yeah, I appreciate your time, man. As always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, let me know. And this episode is brought to you by Pinpoint Skip. Uh, check it out at pinpointskip.com. Thanks again, Matt.
Sounds good. Thank you.